and then we did Vuex. So we did quite a bit of things all together. But there is one thing that I always think is missed when people do online training, such as the one that we've done so far, the kind of live training we did, and is how support developers such as yourself, people that are learning, people that want to learn more, to actually support them in creating a continuous integration pipeline so that your application can actually be deployed to live. Of course, people just mention it, oh, you can deploy here, you can deploy that. But what we're going to do today, I'm going to show you how to deploy, because we had some fantastic feedback so far. And don't forget as well to comment on them, and don't forget to reach out if you want more explanation, or if you think that we didn't cover something specifically. I'm more than happy to actually give you, help you out or give you any extra information. As I mentioned, this is a live session, so we're not actually going to use any slides. And today I will try my best to actually remember to share my screen. So let me just go on that screen and make sure that I can move things around. Okay. So that's good. So if you may remember, in the last couple of weeks, we actually created a very simple application that allowed us to have posts. So think about this as a blog, where we actually were able to create blog posts by adding titles and description. We were able to show the blog post, and we had a few little features to actually show more or show less of the blog post and things like that. Our application was created using the CLI, so it's the basic scaffolding to the Vue 2.6. We had an entry point that is our app. And then we had a store, because we actually introduced Vuex to add the post and to get our post. To get add post, set post. It should be get post. Fetch post. Here we are. This action. Sorry, I was looking for it. And then we had the fake API call to actually load the post. And the components were just two simple components. One of them was a single post with an H2 tag and the title. And then we had a short description or full description, and then a button to actually toggle between the two. So, again, if you want to see this, just go and see the first videos. If you want to see the unit testing, just go and see the third videos, and then so on and so forth. What we're going to do today is actually take this application and deploy it to AWS. The service that you're going to use on AWS is called AWS Amplify. So there are some other services such as Amplify. So Google has Firebase, if you heard of it, and then there's also Netlify. So there are different services that offer a very similar scaffolding and very similar offering of features. Amplify, it's as it says there, is everything you need to deploy to develop and deploy cloud-powered mobile application. What it actually does, Amplify, is it can be your hosting provider. So it actually can handle your development. It can handle your deployment. It can handle automatic deployment, continuous integration, running tests. You can actually link it with GitHub to run your unit tests. You can specify whichever build steps you may need. So it's very, very simple. As we go in details, you will see how simple it is to set it up. And to actually work with the deploy part, you can actually use the interface. You can use the web. So this is what it shows here. So we're able to use AWS either by deploying and using the web, or you can use it to actually develop it as well. And the development happens by providing you different services, such as authentication, push messages, storage with S3, GraphQL with NoSQL database. So there are quite a few services that are there and ready to be used. And as we'll also see later on, they're all very simple to integrate on your application. So you can either integrate it with simple JavaScript, because they provide a CLI, a simple JavaScript CLI, or you can actually integrate it with all the major frameworks such as Vue, React, Angular, and React Native. So there's loads going out there. There's loads available for you. So using Amplify is very good for starting projects because it helps you getting up to speed. So in my case, the reason why I use Amplify straight away is because it provides you SSL certificates. So as soon as you deploy an Amplify, that takes around 3 minutes to actually set it all up, your site will be behind an SSL. That means that if you were here last week when a couple of weeks ago, we saw that PWA, you will know that as SSL certificate is very important to try and test the service worker on mobile phones. So again, AWS will provide you the possibility to deploy it and share it with friends and family, and you will see the cost is very, very low unless you're becoming very successful. So I would think that probably is the best option for static websites such as Vue Reactor or Vue Reactor Angular. What we're going to do this week, today, we're going to test them both. So we're going to use the deploy so you can see how to get things started very quickly, but we're also going to use the CLI so that we can see what kind of feature we can actually add to our application. If time is good with us and if everything goes okay, we will be able to set up a CI integration, so continuous integration, webhooks. So as soon as we push something to a branch, it will be deployed. Everyone will be able to access it straight away on live with a specific site, with a specific endpoint. And then on the second part of our talk, our live session, we're going to actually use the develop part where we're going to add authentication. So we're going to actually build authentication in front of our blog. And we're also going to, at the very end of the session, if we go enough time, we're going to set up, we're going to remove the hard-coded blog post that we currently have. So currently we have the blog posts are coming from this file. We're going to remove that. We're going to remove that, and we're actually going to add it to the cloud. So we're going to get some tables. We're going to go GraphQL, and we're going to do all that and everything set up, and everything should be ready to be done within the 40 minutes that we got left. So there's not enough time. There's loads to cover, but as I say, Amplify is a very powerful tool as well. Something as well, during this session, there will be a couple of times where we will have to wait for Amplify to get all the resources. So there will be a minute here and a minute there. So if you got any question, I would really suggest you to write them down. So if there is anything that I missed, so if you got any specific question that you want to ask, write them here, because like in 5-10 minutes, I already got my, I will be able to answer some, and then so on and so forth throughout the session. So let's get started. First of all, let me think. I do have a list today, so I'll make sure that we go through everything just to, because every time we do a live session at the very end, they always can say, oh, I forgot this or that. So today I'll make sure that they got everything in place. You may remember I do like to use my the GUID provided with Vue. Everything we do today doesn't have to be done in the GUID itself. It can actually be done in the CLI as always. So our first part is to actually to set up the deployment. To set up the deployment, we don't have to do anything whatsoever in our application. So our application is actually hosted on GitHub, as probably most of your application. But if that was not the case, AWS Amplify will actually provide you with resources to set up your application yourself. So what we're going to do is you will have to go and set up an account in AWS. If you do not have an account, it's very simple. So I do have an account, but if you go here to set up an account, it will be very simply on. You just create a new AWS account, email, password, you add a name, and you go straight in. So AWS doesn't take that long to actually set up. You don't have to put any payment information or nothing else. So it's a really good tool to get started. So as soon as you get your account, you're able to get started. So when you actually go in the AWS, the homepage will be like this. And they do have quite a few services. So if you're trying to look for AWS Amplify here, you probably spend 5 minutes or so. So it's the best thing is always to AWS, is always to just write it down. So AWS Amplify is what we want. So we're going to click on it. Okay. So as you can see, I already got one app. That is the one that I tried, that I set up this morning, just to make sure that everything was working for me. But what you will probably have when you will log the first time is this screen. That is the main screen of AWS Amplify. So you need to make sure how you want to get started, if the CLI or the deploy. And as I say, we're going to start with the deploy. So we click on the get started. And the first thing you see is that the integration is there for most of the major source repository, GitLab, Gitbucket, or actually GitHub. So in our case, we do have a GitHub. You click on it, you click continue. If you're not authorized, it's going to ask you to put your username and password. So that's mainly what you have to do, just to give an authorization. You may need to also get a code from your email address, just to if you got choose factor authentication, or depending how your authentication is set up in GitHub. After you do that, you're able to see your repository from GitHub. So in our case, it's going to be this one, this dot / so as I say, I already got connected, so it's telling me. So I decided to go with the repository called JavaScript-marathon.Vue.js, and then you're able to select a branch. So in our case, you check the branch, and I'm going to use master. What the branch actually does, it will set up the hook on the actual branch. So every time something will get pushed to the specific branch, in our case it's master, it's going to build our live version of the site again. We're going to click next. And this is the build settings. So Amplify is very clever of going through your application and trying to understand what application do you have. So if it's a Vue application, an Angular, a React, it actually goes through, you understand the application, and it will change things accordingly. So it's going to tell you, hey, just so you know, I do know that you are using a Vue application. You may want to change. You're able to change this either now or later down the line. For example, something that I usually do is I start with a very basic one, and if things are starting to get better and it's a project that I want to continue, I'm actually able to set this up and to add unit testing, for example, so that before the build, you actually want to run unit tests to make sure that everything is fine, and the build will just be deployed if unit tests pass. So these are the very simply build steps that you can change down the line. There are some advanced settings as well. For example, you're able to set environmental variables. And we're going to look at this later on now after we start our application. So we'll click next because everything in here is actually what I expect. So Vue build in the disk file, and then we need to run npm build on our stuff. At the very end is just a review, checking that everything is fine. As you can see, it did notice by itself that the framework is Vue, so everything has been set for Vue itself. We do save and deploy. So just to show you that this is 4530. Click save and deploy. Everything will probably take around 5 to 10 seconds to actually be deployed and be ready to actually be used. 15 seconds. 15 now? Yeah, 15 seconds. So now I do have everything ready. This is my Amplify console. This is my continuous integration. And as you can see, it's already building my application. So it's taking the information from GitHub, it's going to build it, it's going to deploy it, it's going to verify it. What is important as well, you see that it created a URL. So if you will go to this URL, currently you will not see anything yet, but this URL now is going to be my master. So if you save, if you get your own domain from 101, from Google domain, from wherever you actually want to get your domain, you can just forward that domain to this URL, and that's it, your live site is there. So this is the power of Amplify. This is how quick and easy it is to actually set things up. So as you can see, you've already provisioned it and it started to build up. So in this few minutes, while it's going to build, it's probably going to take around a minute and a half. I'm going to explain what is here on the left-hand side. The tab, they're very simple for you to go through, and the documentation for Amplify is really good. So I don't really like the documentation for AWS in general, but I can guarantee you that the documentation for Amplify is a bit more structured and a bit easier to understand. So in general, we can see probably most of the review that we saw later on. And at the bottom here, we can see that the branches. So you can see that there is these are branches connected. So there's auto build enabled for master, and the branch name is master. If you wanted to create a different build with a different URL, you would just you add it. You can actually set up the build over here. You click next, and you will have multiple of this one. So you actually have multiple links that actually will provide your application. Just so that you know, the links is nothing else than this is unique identifier for Amplify. So if you're, for example, pushing into a branch called develop, it will be develop dot and your unique identifier. So just for your understanding of how Amplify will actually work. As you can see, it's already built, it's deployed, it's verifying it now. Next up, we go domain manager. Again, this is where it's telling you the domain, and you're able to add different domains if you have your own domain registered. The build settings, as I mentioned before, incoming webhook, so you're able to set things up in there as well. Previews. Previews are fantastic, guys. So these are very, very simple to set up with a GitHub. What they actually do, it allows you to actually link it to GitHub. So every time you open a PR in GitHub, it will automatically create a release for you. Say, for example, you go in GitHub, you open a PR and it's called 10. okay, or PR10, you will actually be able to come here and say PR10, and you will be able to see your version of the site for the specific PR. And then when the PR is merged, it will automatically be removed. So this is so powerful and so simple to set up. So again, something that you probably do later down the line after your project is starting to grow. Email notification, just to know when the build is successful. Environmental variable, so this can actually be per specific. You're able to actually to choose if it's for all branches or specific branch. So this is where you will set your, your environment for, for your node environment for production or develop or any other environment that you may require. And then we go, I think it's time to go forward. I never actually use this myself. So of course you go to redirect in case you have to specify some redirects yourself. We go back to our app, because as you can see, it's finished. So we go back, you can actually click here to go to the link, or we actually go here, we refresh, and the app is actually live. Okay? So again, important to realize that if you go here, SSL certificate, all done, all set for you. So that means the service worker is also running, everything is running, our application is there. If you actually go to the link, you will see the application yourself, and this is the power of AWS Amplify. If we do a very small change, for example, let me go here. Apologies. Let me close some. I forgot to close some of the repos. Okay. Let's go here. Yeah. And let's see if I have. Oh, yeah. I did set the width to 600. So I've done something and removed the notification. Discard. Okay, so we're on the master branch. I'm going to push it up. Now, as you can see, we've done nothing whatsoever to our source code. So the source code stays as it is, no changes whatsoever. We go over here, and boom, the deployment is actually starting by itself. Deployment starts. If everything is okay, everything is verified, our version of the site will change. This is, we've taken 20 minutes in total by me introducing it and actually setting it up. And as I mentioned, after you know what to do, it takes minutes of time. Something that is important for me to mention to you guys, because I realized quite too late, when you use Amplify AWS works on regions. So that means that your site is going to be deployed in a specific region. With AWS Amplify, unfortunately, you're not able to move things between one region and another. So if you set everything up, for example, in this case, in US East, you will not be able then tomorrow to change it to US West. So very important that you actually set it up in the correct region before you actually start. What you'll see is that in our case, we're in US East, so now everything will be deployed within the US East region. Our build is going up, and as the build continues, it's probably important to talk about two main things. One is pricing, and number two is how to make sure, I would say it's called the cloud fear. So I have cloud fear. So every time I do something in the cloud, I'm always scared to have a big bill of around $5,000 coming to my doorstep every day. Okay. So there are two things there's something that we can actually do to avoid this. And it's actually all explained here in this fantastic blog post here. So the blog post is called Control Your AWS Cost. But what is the important part that I usually always do is set up budgeting and set up budget alert. So what he actually does is you can set up any budget you want. For example, you say there is a free tiers all the time for AWS for the first year, and you can say I want to receive an email when my free tier goes up to 80%. I would always suggest you to do it anytime as soon as you register your account. The main reason for it is not because someone is going to hack your account, but it's because you may do something, you will forget it. For example, in my case, I did image recognition, and it was great, and I played around with it, but I forgot about the image recognition. And after the year, the image recognition started to actually be chargeable for it, and people were using it. So this is important, not just because someone may hack you, but it's important for you to actually realize. So as of today, I've not, I don't actually paid anything that I didn't want to pay. And following this blog post is very good for you to actually learn about it. So I'm going to put the blog post and I'm going to share it in the comment. and I'm also going to add it later on in the actual show notes. Okay, so after we spoke about how to control your cost, let's see how much it actually is going to cost you to run AWS Amplify. Luckily, AWS Amplify costs very, very little. So, and by little, I mean that there is actually a free tier, and the free tier runs for 12 full months. So when you register your AWS account, you have a whole year of kind of free AWS. We have 1,000 minutes build per month. So if you've seen, normal Vue.js application may probably take 2 to 3 minutes to build. So you have a lot to build there every month. You have a hosting of 5 gig. I don't think you're probably going to use 5 gig yourself. And 15 gigs served. So unless you actually have a video application or something, you're not going to reach that. So most of the example I've done with AWS and everything I've showed up, I don't actually use much. When you start and pay for it, is 1 pen per build. So let's say that you actually take 5 minutes to build, you pay 5 pence per build. That is less than actually how much it takes to actually to run a dishwasher. And then hosting is the same, is 0.02 pence, is 2.3 pence, and 15 pence per gigabyte served. So again, yes, there is some cost involved, but don't forget that it provides you the hosting, it provides the SSL certificate that sometimes can actually have different costs in different providers. So I got other services in one-on-one. I do pay £7 a month. So before you reach £7 a month with this, it's actually going to take a long time. So that's why for me, AWS really supports you. And the time you save in actually developing and pushing and deploying and do continuous integration, it is worth the money. So now that we covered these things, it's time to actually move on to just let me take things off. It's actually time to move on and play around with the other part of the AWS Amplify, that is the framework itself. Okay, so it's the develop part. If you've seen this screen, if you analyze it a bit more, you would have noticed that at the moment we are in our front-end environment. AWS provides something called a backend environment. And these are all the features that AWS provides. These are API, authentication, storage, analysis, and also, I think, also push notification. So all these is at the fingertips. So it's very simple to add. And we're going to follow the documentation here to actually add it up. What you need to do first is install Amplify. Globally in your application, or you can actually install it locally if you want. And then you can initialize Amplify for your project as shown here. So what I want to let you realize, guys, as well, is that when you go to documentation, let me see. So the first thing we're going to add is actually going to be docs, okay? So we're going to go to documentation. You will see that on the very top here, it tells you framework supported. So Amplify provides you ready solutions, so it provides you CLI for specific frameworks. So Vue is quite new, so the version of the framework is actually 0.2, so it's not done in version. It's not actually achieved version 1 yet. I'm starting to use it as well for development and for production. But what I do is always make sure that I actually am aware what the component I'm using actually do behind the scene, and make sure that I'm aware of everything that goes there. So there is it's quite simple for you to override the components and actually take write everything from scratch. So if you would follow the normal documentation, the one that comes from here, there is nothing wrong whatsoever, because your documentation is completely the same. So this is going to provide you authentication, you check an overview, and it'll tell you everything how to add it, how to set the groups, and how to get started locally. So in our case, we've done this. We've done the free tier. So get started with authentication. In this step, it doesn't tell you about adding the Vue CLI, but we're actually, it does tell you to add the AWS Amplify CLI. And that's probably, does it tell you here? Yes. So it does tell you, Okay, so it's not too bad. So we're going to our project now. We're gonna add these two packages. The first one is going to be the AWS Amplify CLI. And the second one is then going to be the UI-Vue. Again, AWS Amplify /UI-Vue. So it's probably gonna. Yeah. So we're gonna run this one now, AWS Amplify and AWS-Vue. These are the two required packages within your project to actually run the CLI and implement everything. So we'll wait for everything to be so. I just remember that I'm also streaming, so it may take a minute or two. What we're going to do is add authentication. So we're going to follow the instruction provided here. So we're going to go through everything and answer the questions. And when everything is finished, we'll actually be able to set up authentication without even writing a single component. So as I mentioned, it is on version 0.2, but it's quite complete. So the packages, I found the packages to actually be here, the components. So if you go in Authenticator, you will see that there is a sign in, a sign out, a sign up. There's a forgot password, confirm sign in, and everything is linked in and actually working with the CLI behind the scene. So if you go on sign in, for example, you see that is actually using the this.amplify sign in. So if you want to actually write your own sign in, you can actually copy this file, or you can follow the documentation, but at the end of the day, you will probably do something very similar to this. So you will call the Amplify CLI, the auth part of it, you will run a sign in, and you will wait for the response, and so on and so forth. So, the components are not very complex. And also, if you are getting started in development, this is one of the projects that's very good to actually provide some suggestions. Probably not this one itself, but the one of the AWS one. Now let's go back and see if it's actually finished yet. So yeah, the packages, and now we're going to add Amplify and AWS Amplify to our project. That one should not take that long, hopefully. Yeah. Okay. Let's go and get ready for the next step. So to actually add new feature on your application, you can actually just do you will have to do Amplify add, and then you're able to add which service. So in our case, we're going to do Amplify add auth. Okay. So we're going to go there in our application that is finished right now. Amplify add auth. It's big enough. We're going to make it a bit bigger just in case. We're gonna scan of plugins. Great. So I forgot to actually initialize Amplify on our application. So if you go and see, there is in our folder doesn't have anything related to Amplify. So we need to actually do, oops, Amplify init. Work with extra space, yes. So we just follow some of the information here. So enter the name for the project. What is the environment actually called? In our case, it's going to be JavaScript. JavaScript Marathon AWS example. Oh, that's a lot. Which editor do you want to use? Visual Studio Code. Choose a type. So again, this is Amplify is being built for mobile. So their idea was to support in actually building mobile app. So they go iOS and Android, and it's very good for React Native, for example. So in our case, we're just going to run. We're going to run JavaScript. We're going to get Vue. As you can see, it's pre-selected. So new source disk and run. all fine. Yes, getting something ready for us. So in my case, I'm going to say yes, because I do have a profile, because if you just created an AWS account, you do not have a profile. So you just need to click no here and actually go and actually set up a profile for you. Oh, I think I actually need to go and set up a profile as well, because I haven't saved mine. I'm going to fail now because I think it doesn't link up. Oh, it's working. So this is in this process actually is linking up now our application with Amplify. Okay. I have probably there was I think I should have actually added a app ID. This is my bad. So we need to see now if we're able to actually link up the two. So after you install Amplify on your source code, you will see that it's making some small changes. So we're adding things to the git ignore to remove all the Amplify files that are not necessary, and it's also going to create an Amplify. It's going to create an Amplify. Amplify information over here. So it created new ID now. So this one is different from mine, and the ID is actually, as you can see, is the one that is also used on the endpoint. So what we're going to do, we're going to see if we're able to do it again. So this is the pleasure of the life. Yes, the Vue one. So hopefully it's going to link the two together. So you're able to actually have Amplify deployed on different, linked to different Amplify Amplify application. They're actually called app. And let me see, has it changed it now? Yes, not, but let's see if it works. Let's go ahead. We may have to redo this step, that's fine. So when you finish something, it tells you, for example, hey, just trying to add an API if you want, and then you do publish. So you can do your changes locally. They also have a mock, so you're able to run the information locally as well. So you're able to run Amplify service locally. So you don't always have to play with you don't always have to wait for the cloud. You don't always have to do cloud deployment. So in our case, as I mentioned before, we're going to do Amplify add auth. So we're going to add an auth. It's going to ask you different configurations. So you're able to log in, for example, with if you do this, you will be able to set up Twitter and Google and Facebook login. We'll just go with default. We go with username in our case, and then we don't want any advanced setting. We're done. There are more information and documentation. You can actually go there and change things, but don't forget you can always change things later on as well. What this is doing now is creating something called Cognito. So Cognito is the authentication part. Yeah. So Cognito is the authentication part behind the scene for AWS, and is what is going to hold our information for our user, and it's going to speak with our application to make sure that the user are logged in or not. So we want to do a push now. So we're going to do Amplify push. This is pushing all the information over, and when we will go to our application, we should be able to see that we have an auth backend actually deployed as well to our site. The next step now is going to be to actually implement the authentication within our application. And as I mentioned, it's very simple. We need 3 different things. So the Amplify authentication works with you actually are going to apply a wrapper to your application. So everything is going to be within the Amplify Authenticator. And then you have different slots that will be loaded depending from different different state of your application. For example, if you're logged out, it will show you to sign in. If you click on the sign up, you will see the sign up. If you do forgotten password, and if you're logged in and everything is fine, it's going to show the default slot that is the rest of your application. So in our case, we're going to copy this. We're going to go in the app.view. Oh, and here it's asking me, so after you run this, it tells you all the things that you're trying to push. So it's telling you want to change the auth to the resource name of 1 hour to learn Vue, and the operation is to create. So this one will tell you update or nothing in the future. So you can say yes. We're waiting for that one. So in the meantime, we go over here, guys. So this is our application. As I mentioned, we need the wrapper. So we're going to add a Amplify authenticator. So this is the wrapper, and this is our application. So I'm going to save. We cannot run the application as of yet because we're waiting for the cloud to actually be everything to be deployed. So don't forget, now it's actually getting everything started online. It's getting the table ready, and everything is going to be implemented behind the scene for you. The front end is not changing as such because there's no changes on the front end, but the back end will have more services being created to it now. So you can actually go and see that everything is happening. So if I go here now, if I'll save this, you should actually, it's probably going to fail, but let's see. So we go here, we run the task. It may fail now, it may work as soon as things get deployed. Okay, so I've not loaded up Amplify yet on our, within our file, so there is no changes there, and therefore it's failing. So we're going to go and there's a missing step in here that is actually to add the information. So gonna in the main.vue file. So we need to do 3 things. That is actually add Amplify to our application. So we have to import the UI.vue. We have to import AWS Amplify, that are the 2 packages that we loaded up. And then we also need to load this AWS-export. This is a file that has been created automatically by, sorry, I think it's quite small. Yeah. So this is a file that is created by the init that we did for the Amplify, and then we need to add it up. So we're going to load this, copy these 3 files. We're going to go back to our application in the main.js. On the very top, we're going to save them and save. Now we're going to go back to our app. It's reloading. Up and down, up and down. Yeah. Oh, it's doing it again. Oh, look, fantastic. So we are, everything is finished here. So our API and authentication has actually been added to our application now. And I've not added any component. I've not done anything at all. But as you can see right there, we have a login page. So we didn't have an account, and therefore we're not logged in, and therefore we just see the login page. The login page may not look pretty, but if you actually go here, you will be able to see all the different, let me see, API view. Okay. I'm trying to see all the components getting started. Oh, UI components up here. So you go on up here, you go in authentication, you go and see all the different components that actually provide you. So as I mentioned before, Vue is 0.2. React and Angular are very similar, but React Native is quite advanced. So this is where everything started for them, is the React Native. So if you go on this page, you will be able to see all the different components available, such as the Amplify sign-in, and it tells you all the properties that are there, all the slots, and all the different customization as well. So you're able to have theming. So as you can see, there's something in there. Again, don't forget that it's just a simple Vue component. You can copy, paste it, and change it accordingly as you need it yourself. So in our case, we go back to the authenticator. So this is the page that you use to actually get started with it. So this is where it tells you to do to install it, to add it, and it's telling you just add it to the application and have your app inside it. That's fine. All the rest is handled. So in our case, we're going to go here and we're going to create an account now. So we're going to do create account. Again, as you can see, the create page is all there. We're going to say test I'm not telling you my password. I don't want phone number, but I'm just gonna add it there. Oh. I didn't want to put the real phone number. So now it's actually waiting. There is a code that has been sent to my account. So I'm gonna log in on my other screen. I apologize. 2 seconds. Okay, I got an email called verification code. Look, I got an email code called verification code. You can change all these things as well. So these are all set within the application. So I'm gonna. I confirm, and now my account is going to be confirmed. And as you can see, I'm logged in. So that's fantastic. My application is there. If you guys go to the application, you will probably see that you need to log in as well now. Well, sorry, as soon as we push the changes, because this is all locally. So I'm logged in. There's no logout button, and that's the only one that you actually need to add yourself within your application. Again, we go back to this page. When you go down, you can see that in the very basic example that they showed, they do have an amplified sign out button. Because they cannot actually push things within your slot, you need to add that yourself. So in our case, we're going to go here. We're going to go in our app, and at the very end of it, we're going to add an amplify sign out button. We're going to go in here, and there's a very, very attractive sign out button. So if I refresh now, the state is there, so it knows that I'm signed in. And when I click sign out, guys, I get signed out again. So just to show you that everything works, username and password, I'm able to sign in. Everything is set up. So the API is there. The API is working. Let me get the screen up to make sure that I can see your comment, guys. So everything is there, and our authentication is done. Now, I don't know you guys, when I first started, authentication was complex, was hard, was something that I really was scared of doing it. So Amplify does it their way. They support in doing it the right way. So they have their own way of making sure that it's secure, that is all done and is up to speed. And it's really, really good. For example, as I mentioned, you could actually have selected with Federation as well. So you were able to set up Google and Twitter login and so on and so forth. So in just a few steps, you have a very powerful tool there to actually have authentication. What we're going to do next is going to add the API. So we got just 15 minutes. So we're going to go, I'm going to go just a little bit faster that I could. So I'm going to do, again, add API in here. So we're going to go back in our application. We're going to do add API. Now, when you add the API, you can choose a GraphQL or a REST API. I'm going to go for the GraphQL one. And then it's going to tell you the name. Okay. It's going to choose you what kind of authentication you want, and I want API key. You choose for after how many days the key need to expire. 7, that is the default. And do you want to configure any advanced settings? So I say, no, I'm done. Okay. Now, in this case, he also says, do you have an annotated schema? And my answer is going to be no. So, if you do have a GraphQL schema, you can just look it up and everything is going to be fine. Do you want to have a guided tool? I'm going to say yes. Then it asks you a single object or a many-to-many relationship. Important to realize, guys, that even if you do a one-to-many relationship, behind the scene, AWS is going to set up a non-relational database. But on the front end, it's going to provide you a relational GraphQL queries. It took a little bit for me to realize what happened, but apparently it's all because they can handle the resources differently. By not having tables that relate to each other, they can actually increase things and change things. So I think it's all behind the way of they provide the tables for you. It's important for you to realize that this actually creates a DynamoDB database on the backend that is no relational. So I do single object. Do you want to edit this? I'm going to say yes. I do have, it doesn't know how to actually open up my editor, so it could not find my VS Code because it's installed on different environments. So just telling you, go in this file and actually load it up, and you'll be able to change the GraphQL query. So if we go in our application and we follow the information there, so it's going to tell you backend, API, schema. So our schema is very, very complex, as you can see. We're going to change it, and we're going to call it, we're going to post. And this is just a normal GraphQL, so we need to define this thing, think of this as a table. So we're going to define my table, that is table of post. It's going to have an ID, title, and description. The reason why it got ID, title, description, because if you may remember, our source actually have, our components will actually have a title and a description. Okay, so just to match up with what we got already. So the title is required, the description is not, because we got default description there. We're going to save here. And then after that, we press continue, and it's finished. So we've done our change here. Should be able to pass here now. Okay. Now, everything is done locally, but there's an extra step that is actually pushing everything live so that the table can actually get, the resources of the table can actually be there. Everything can be implemented, and our table and our GraphQL, and everything is actually, should be there to actually for us to use. And to do that, we need to push it, just like we did before. So we're going to do push. AWS is going to tell us now, is going to give a little summary to say, look, you got these changes. Are you sure you want to push them? And then after that, we should be able to go. This is going to take a couple of minutes as well. So we're going to go elsewhere now. So again, API has been created. The auth, there's no change in it. So are you okay with it? I'm going to say yes. And it's going to start and do things. There's going to be a question. Oh, that's quick. So it's going to tell you if you want AWS Amplify to generate the code for you. So I'm quite new to GraphQL. So if I would have to generate all the mutation, the subscription, and everything else by myself, I would take a little bit long. So what they can do, if you say yes, the JavaScript is going to provide you location of this. That's fantastic. It's going to create queries, mutation, and subscription already, depending from the file that you actually have. I'm going to say yes in our case. I'm going to leave it to true, and this is going to go now. So as I mentioned, it's going to take our post table, and it's going to do all the get post, set post, the move post, update post, all those things behind the scene. They will also be, loadable. We will be able to see them straight away and learn from it. So in my case, I don't know GraphQL, and probably these are not the best queries. So if you know GraphQL, you should do it yourself. But for sure, you should be able to, if you want to get started with it, it's a great tool. And that's where I go back to this really, really great tool to get started for many different things. So it's going to get everything started for us. And if we go back to application, I need to see if it actually linked up. Oh, I actually called them completely the same. Okay, that's that one. Okay, unfortunately, when we did the linking, it didn't actually link up the, when I started, I didn't start with the right app ID, so it didn't link up the two. I'm going to show you how it looks like in actual, in the one that I did this morning. So when you go here to the back environment, you will be able to see different settings, such as this API authentication. So again, authentication uses the cognito, and you can actually go there and see your cognito tables. So for example, in my case is 1 hour to learn Vue. You click on it, you will be able to see that there's one email. It tells you all the different information. You're able to do user groups. You're able to do, tags. You're able to do analysis. There's so much that you can actually do on it. If you actually want to see the users, you go in here. You can open up the test user and see information. So you can see that the email has been verified and everything else. So this is actually your users. This is, I've seen application with hundreds and thousands of users in here. So this can manage application as big as you want, as big as yours can actually get. The next one that we have set up is the API on that one. And in here, again, you can see that there is there's a GraphQL API set up. and there is a table already in the data resources provided for you called a to-do table in this case, in the previous version. But everything, so the tables behind the scene done with DynamoDB and your application, there's something in the middle called AppSync. And that's what is going to be, is the middleware that is going to handle all the requests to the actual application. So if you go in AppSync here, you see that it provides you, it tells you what your schema is. It allows you to run the query straight away. So if you do queries, you can see that there is a query, you're able to run the query directly on your database. There's caching, there's functions, so everything is in here. So this is where you will be able to play with your GraphQL. But at the end of the day, you can actually do straight up from your application, and your application is going to speak with AppSync that is going to go straight to your table. So again, you will learn as you start to play around, but there is a table there. So if you go back, you will see there's a specific table in DynamoDB called to do, and there will be another one now be added in our case called post. Go back to application. Everything is done over here. You can see that there's a GraphQL endpoint as well. So you will probably want to open the endpoint, but it's going to fail because of the key. There is a GraphQL key as well, and everything is going to be automatically be added. So you don't have to do anything at all. Everything has been done. Everything has been pushed. Everything is ready to be used. How do we use it? Let's go. We go even less time. So we are going to. So we added the API. We've done everything here. We've done our schema. We've done Amplify push, and everything is there. So as I mentioned before, AWS is going to create the information, the mutation, and everything you need for you. So if you actually go here. We specified the file to be, apologies, there's not much space when everything is so big. So when you go to API now, there is a second, where is the file? GraphQL. So there's a folder called GraphQL, this is where we wanted everything, and within that you go all the information. So if you go in mutation, you can see that they created a create post mutation, an update post mutation, a delete post mutation. For the queries, we got a get post with a specific ID, list post, and that's it. And then we also got the schema that is there, and we got the subscription. So on create and on update. So you're actually able to create subscriptions, such as Amplify provider a pub sub. So you will be able to actually have your data to actually show in real time. So if you set up things on, for example, on update post, using the Amplify subscription, you will be able to see the new post as soon as someone gets them added. So in our case, we're going to use the query of list posts because we want to see all our posts. So we're going to take this down so that we got more space. How do we use this? We use this by using AWS CLI and more importantly, AWS, and we're going to use the API part of the AWS because we are in the API stage. So we go back here, always go down through the documentation, and we already got everything imported ourselves, so we don't have to do that. And this is actually everything we have to do ourselves to actually create or update or get our to-do. So we're gonna load up our data. So you may remember, we actually set up the store. So we need to go back to our store. We open up our index file, and in here we're going to do most of it. So first of all, we're going to load our. It's not going to call list to do. It's going to be called list posts. We're going back. We're going to do list post. Sorry, wrong button. And then we're going to now use the API, GraphQL part of it, and we're going to run a GraphQL operation that is our list post. So again, if you don't want to use the queries provided, you can just write your own, and then the rest will be completely the same. Amplify, yeah. So we need to import the API within this page. So we're going to do this. We're going to remove the Amplify. We're going to do API. So again, go back here. Just for our own simplification, we're just going to copy it. So when we set what we want to do on the fetch post, before we're going to go to our fake API to actually do it. In this case, we're going to go to api.graphql, and we're going to call the list posts. The way the data is returned, guys, if you go and check the queries, you see that the data is returned with a list of items with the next token. So what we have to do, we have to actually, we have to do a little bit of modification within our store. Otherwise, it's just actually going to look bad. So due to time constraints, I'm actually going to go and see it straight away. So we're going to do. I'm going to show you what we're actually doing. But so the way the data comes out, the data is all within a data parameter, and then within that we have our list of to-dos, and what we really want is the items. Okay. What we're going to do, we want to set the post with the items itself. So we're going to abstract it. You were able to just return it and then go in data, list to do, and get the items, or you can actually do this to actually get the items straight away. So we're going to copy the items there. We're going to paste in there. We're going to save it. Oh, yeah, I forgot to define GraphQL as well. And I think GraphQL is also going to be here. Queries, list post. Okay, should be okay now. No. Let's see what this is actually complaining about. Oh, okay. Wrong path. So let's go back one. Fantastic. Let's see if it works now. Yay. So we go back to our application, and as you can see, it's completely empty because we don't have any entry within our tables. So what we want to do is actually add some. Very similar to the way we've done the fetch, we can actually do the add as well. So that's now you can also, guys, see the power of adding a store. We don't have to go into the individual components to do it. We're able to do it straight away over here. So I wanted to show you very quickly. So to add, we can just do create to do, and we have an input. So yeah, I'm going mad with all these windows. In the add post that runs an action of add post, we're going to make it a sync so you can use the wait. We're going to have API. We're going to have a create posts now. And we're going to open from mutations, add post. And as you can see, the add post as a accept an argument of input that has to be the actual information. So in our case, it's going to be payload. What we also do, we're going to add that payload to our post. So we will see the post straight away, but we'll have to refresh to actually see the post on live. So we'll go back here. Just make sure that everything is loaded. So my live post. Okay, we'll do submit. We see if I've done any mistakes. I probably have. Oh, must provide the source. Okay. Must provide the source, just so you know, it's an error that always comes. It means that you have not loaded the mutation correctly. So if you go back here, I need to see that the mutation is actually called add. Oh, it's actually called create post. I did have create post. So create post, and down here create post. We're going to save it. We're going to go back to our application. We wait until it refreshes. So I just did live. We're going to submit, and now we do see live. As I mentioned, this is actually it is fake in the sense that this one is local now. What I'm going to do, I'm going to refresh so you can actually see it from live. And if I refresh the app, guys, we should be able to see it from live. Oh, items can't find. Oh, again. Those no, it's supposed. Let's see if it works now. Oh, Yay! So this is actually our live. We got the table now. The table has been filled up. We're fetching the table from there, and this is the live information. If we had more time, we would have set up the subscription, but we don't actually have time to set up the subscription right now. Otherwise, you all would have been able to actually join in live and be able to see this information. If I would actually just push this up, you will be able, in less than 2 minutes, actually go on my live version of the site and be able to add things, and everyone would be able to see different posts. So this will be the power of it. As you may expect, this is a live demo. So I'm going to get rid of the Amplify application just to make sure that I don't incur in unwanted cost. I do know that there's just a single question currently. So I'm going to go through the question. Let me see. It is Bilal. So I wasn't there at the beginning of the session. Can you just mention how AWS Amplify is compared to AWS hosting? So actually, they are the same thing in the sense that the hosting is a simple part of AWS. So you're able to, when you go here in the console, you're able to use the hosting by just going on the UI. So if you want to do hosting, this is all you have to do. Just follow a couple of steps, and that's it. With actually AWS Amplify, the rest of it is the develop part. So you're actually able to provide hosting as well in using the CLI. But if you do this, you actually need to use the CLI as we did ourselves. So when you actually go here and use the CLI, part of the CLI will actually be hosting. So I'll give you an example. If I try to do now, for example, when you do something, you always tell you can either push or publish. When you do publish, he also pushes the hosting for you. If I do publish, you will see that it's going to fail because I currently don't have the hosting set up in the CLI itself, as you can see. So hosting is one of the services that you can add on Amplify itself. But again, it's very simple. Very simply, just it's the same things, just that they provide a simple version of the simple UI version in there in the Amplify, AWS console. Usually, I always get started with the just console itself, and then if needed, I go to the CLI. So we have run over for 5 minutes. So we're going to a little bit over, but we did cover quite a bit of information, guys. That is, we were able to set up authentication. So again, authentication is a big thing. So probably every time someone will tell you authentication, you will say that it's going to be hundreds of hours to do it correctly. Of course, we just set up with the very basic of it, but I can guarantee you in 20 to 30 hours, you will have the authentication provider as you want, with all the settings, with different roles, with all the different, sign up and sign in information. Everything will actually be there and ready for you in just a couple of 20 or so hours. And that's a powerful tool. Next up, we also set up our schema. We set up a table. We set up a possibility to actually to use GraphQL. I've used this application to actually do a very complex schema with loads of relationship and so on and so forth. You do have, if your schema is very complex, you do probably end up having be better off creating your own mutation, mainly because GraphQL just creates everything for you when you may actually want something that is more specific. But other than that, I can guarantee you that the Amplify, the AWS Amplify can really support you in most of the development. As I mentioned, Google has a counterpart called Firebase, and it's very similar. So also price-wise, if you go and check and compare, they're very similar, and they're very similar to setup as well. But the powerful part is that they provide you a live website, SSL certificate, continuous integration, ability to hook with GitHub and everything else for test and so on and so forth, all in just a couple of minutes. So I really hope everyone was happy about the content of this delivery. If you do have anything at all on this session, drop me a line, write a comment on Distant Media, or with the or using my my Twitter name called Zelig880. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for coming and joining this session. And I hope to see you next week. Next week on the last session that we have, that is all about debugging and actually see how to master Vue and how to learn how to solve all the Vue bugs. So thank you again.